Brandon, you look dressed to go see a Marvel.
Oh, dude, I'm ready to see all the Marvels, but no spoilers in this house. Okay, I take it very seriously.
Yeah, seriously, guys, no spoiler.
Seriously, seriously, don't mention the Hulk. But on that note, I want to talk about a film today that is much better than a Marvel.
We talk about movies on this podcast?
Apparently, some people tune in for the movies. I don't. I tune in for the plus size men wearing Hawaiians. But yeah, let's talk about Friendship, the Paul Rudd and was it Tim Robinson Nightmare Fuel experience. I loved it, and let's eventually talk about Bring Her Back, a much less funny movie.
Yeah. Very contrasty this week. I think. Well, first of all, I just want to say too, I miss you. We're back on the virtual setup. It was nice having you here for 2 episodes.
Yeah, it's nice being 6 feet apart again.
Yeah, exactly. Back to the I don't want to say the dreaded C word, but
yep.
No, I think I just got back from Friendship today. I just want to shout out Sam again because once again, sight unseen. I was like, "Hey, you up for a double feature on Saturday?" He said, "Yep." And didn't ask. He didn't even know what one it was until I sent him the ticket so he could get into the theater. But we did that, and one that we'll talk about next week. And we happened to wear the exact same shirt, totally unplanned and uncoordinated. But
that's what I'm saying. Us plus size boys with
we like
plus
it.
Size
the little
fashion
button up.
taste.
It's warm out there, so
Yeah.
I literally before I left the house, I said to Ty, I was like, I'm wearing this shirt because there's a greater than 0% chance that Sam will also wear the same shirt without us talking about it, and we did. So
nice.
Also, just a random little bit is I started smuggling in my own popcorn seasoning.
Okay.
First time, and it absolutely opened in my bag. It went everywhere. So work in progress on smuggling in popcorn seasoning, but I'm very particular about my dill pickle, but we'll save that for a different day. But yeah, let's dive into Friendship. I think this was on a high level. You said you loved it. I think I'll just say I don't think I loved it quite as much, but I had a lot of fun with it. And those are our spoiler-free thoughts. Now, otherwise, it's open season. Let's jump into this one.
Yeah, okay. I want to try to vaguely summarize it spoiler-free before I spook anybody away. It's a hard one to summarize. You saw this like an hour ago, so I almost want you to summarize it because it's fresh in your mind.
I like try to give the minimum setup possible.
Yeah, give me like 2 paragraphs.
Not even, bro. I think the basic setup is you got Paul Rudd and Tim Robinson. And Paul Rudd is what I think Brandon and I is the textbook definition of a cool guy to Brandon and I when we were like 14. And Tim Robinson just falls in love, basically, not actually, but is smitten by this new friendship that he has. And awkwardness ensues, I think, is the safest way to put that.
Yeah.
Awkwardness and cringe.
I would say
maybe a little heart still, question mark?
I would say, yeah, a little bit of heart goes a long way. To non-spoiler summarize it, the first third is like a Judd Apatow classic comedy where you are bought into this like blossoming bromance. The second third, I would say, starts and remains like a Tim Robinson, I think you should leave nightmare scenario. And the final third is basically the conclusion of that nightmare scenario with that little bit of heart put back into it because the heart leaves for that second third. I felt like very uncomfortable for that second third. I would say these are more closing remarks, but it's spoiler free because I haven't talked about it. But this movie is a great comedy because it is also equal parts a horrific tragedy. Like I think my general summary here and what I'd tell people is like the Judd Apatow style super bad comedy has kind of died or migrated all the way to streaming. It's not a theater release anymore. I think this movie succeeds because it is so cringe and so like plucks at your heartstrings in like the no way, please don't do that type way. That elevates the tragic, horrific events. So the comedy is just the tragedy of what we're watching. And I know it's like a pretentious, D-bag saying all this, but
here, bro.
This is probably my best screening. Okay, I should open with that. This is probably my best screening experience of all the movies we're talking about tonight. I went on a Friday night, I think a week or two after it came out. Pack theater at the Varsity Cineplex in Toronto, which is like the kind of nicer, kind of more not indie, but it's like they didn't play a handful of movies to keep more movies in there. Senators is still there in IMAX, I believe, despite top 10.
If it has IMAX, I don't know that it technically definitionally is an indie theater, but
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, amazing theater experience, packed, and everything landed. Like I would say the beauty of this movie is our jokes that hit really hard to a few people. And I'm not saying like, oh, it gets one cringe person in 100. It's like 30 of 100 will cringingly laugh, while the rest of people's like, what are they laughing about? And then like I would say 80% was always laugh out loud laughing. It was really cathartic to go. A1 theater experience. But yeah, let's get into the spoilers of it, I guess. Let's talk more serious and then general thoughts.
yeah, there was one bit that I'll bring up later that was like so randomly out of left field. Like it was a background, like not even background audio kind of thing, but just a joke that made me cackle. But me and Sam were like the only ones in our theater. It was a little less busy today, but again, it's been out a few weeks now.
Yeah, it's almost a month.
Also, we went to an afternoon showing, but like for that, it was, there's a decent number of people in there. Small theater here at your favorite theater, the Forum. That's where we saw both of them. Yeah, and they were both in, generic Forum theaters too. So hate those seats big time. But yeah, I think, so I want to start this with the Tim Robinson of it all, because I don't know, I had no time to Google the director, writer, or anything like that. But like it felt so, I have never seen his show. I've never seen anything this guy's done other than through like memes and shit that I've seen online, or I've seen clips posted and whatever, but I've never watched the show. There's literally like 2 bits I can think of off the top of my head that I've seen. But like found it like enjoyable enough. Like I got the bit and guy seemed funny, but I was surprised to see, at least on, through the credits, that he was not more involved in this, because it felt very much like what I expected. Like from the minimal amount of exposure I've had to his comedy. But it felt very much in line with that, which is good. Like that's not a fault or anything, but it was definitely like that weird line of like, because I'm once like, now that we're in spoilers, like I don't want to jump to the ending. We'll get to that. But like, I was not perplexed by the ending, but I was left like pensive. I was thinking about it, and I was like, there's a little bit of heart still in here, which I thought was interesting. But yeah, like it really does, like you said, I like your kind of 3-act structure, because you're very much right. Like that opening kind of honeymoon phase of their friendship was like really kind of funny, and
you're hoping the whole time. You're like, oh, I can't wait to see more of this. Oh my god, it's so nice seeing these two goofballs, the way they play off each other.
And it works. It works really well.
Works really
and then
well.
it just, like the friendship, just takes a dramatic plunge off a cliff. And it was, honestly, I couldn't help but think of like the Banshees of Inisherin a little bit at the one scene where they're like, I don't want you to hang out with you anymore. Yeah. Very much not at all like framed that way, but it was a similar beat. But yeah, like, and when that all kind of devolved, like I loved the ascent. Like I enjoyed it. He was a very weird dude out of the gate, but it was like kind of in an endearing, sweet way. And then when he does the inciting incident, the boxing and the soap, just like I'm like, oh no, like I was like felt bad for him, and it just
he's a great character
for him from there.
You feel the sympathy, because I think like I guess what's funny, because we're like, summarize the movie, and other than like the elevator pitch of like Paul Rudd and Tim Robinson becoming best friends and it going south. Like,
that was all I needed to be intrigued to go. I was like, all right, that seems all right.
I don't know if the trailer's selling going south that much, and I appreciate like they didn't, because like I thought the whole thing was going to be like, again, like a Judd Apatow style, like super bad, 2 goofy guys, because Paul Rudd's quite goofy himself, and you do believe they would be a great friendship, except for that one kind of tribal moment. So Tim Robinson is this like kind of goofball guy. His job, by the way, is such a great job.
Yeah.
His job is to essentially take the analytics to keep people addicted to their phones and come up with content and ads to target them. And if you've ever watched his show Detroiters, like he's like a nobody ad agency guy who runs an ad agency in recessed Detroit. So like in a weird way, this is like the elevated version of that, where he's like a corner office skis bag that works just anyways. But even his friends and his coworkers that are like work friends don't even like him that much. And there's a lot of like humor that they mine out of those people. That again, one of the like funny bits is like Tim Robinson calling Marvel movies there's a new Marvel out, and then later when they're all over like, oh, it's like that time when like Thanos snapped his finger. He's like, no, don't spoil it. It's like, A, that's been out for 4 or 5 years, but like B, like that's just Tim Robinson. But so summarizing the story though, Tim Robinson, his new neighbor, he's selling his house, and which also doesn't even kind of come to fruition, I don't think, by the end of it. He's selling his house. He's him and his wife and his son, maybe not his son, all live in the suburb, and this cool guy from down the street moves in, and it's Paul Rudd. He's got a mustache. He's a nighttime weatherman. He's got this cool Arrowhead collection. He wants to buy a suite. It was like Camaro or something. Anyways, I think it was a Corvette. Anyways, super cool guy. He reminds me, if you've ever seen the Bill Burr show F is for Family, he reminds me a lot of like Terry down the street. He's got the mustache, and he's kind of cool. He's kind of like his character from the Anchorman, but like
that's what I thought of instantly.
Yeah,
like, I'm a weatherman. I'm like he was like just a general guy or something in Anchorman. I was like, if he was the weatherman, I would have been like, all right, come on.
Yeah, it was so tight, and their friendship, the way they show it, they do these cool little things where they go looking for mushrooms, and I think this movie is more a meditative thing geared towards male friendships and the importance of male friendships, and how men's social world and the dynamics completely dissolve as you get older if you don't put in the effort or, find those outlets. And there's so many scenes I think that cement it. I'm so lost on this because I love this movie. But Paul Rudd, Tim Robinson, best of friends, immediate connection. Paul Rudd's super cool. He's showing Tim Robinson all these cool things. Second act starts with him going over to Paul Rudd's house. He's got all of his other friends over, and they're all kind of like a little cooler, maybe. He doesn't know them. And he's not that funny. There's a few moments where he lands like great jokes. Like he runs into the window.
And even when the jokes land, right, they're not like, he didn't mean to do that. He walked into the glass door thinking it was open, and like,
and all that good karma,
the bit,
and all the good karma from the first third. You're like, oh, he's endearing himself. He's a goofball. He's a fuck up, but he's endearing himself, and it's working out. And then you get to a scene where they're sparring boxing in his garage, like a bunch of men, getting that physical aggression out. And Tim Robinson's not good at it, and he gets a little embarrassed, and so he sucker punches Paul Rudd, and it like ruins the night. Everyone's like, whoa, hey, like, and the tension in that scene was ratcheting up, where I was watching and kind of going, oh no, please, I want this friendship to succeed, please. And it ruins the night. It's such social horror. If you, I think a lot of times I give a lot of grace, and I talk about horror movies where the horror is not like mutilation, it's like social dynamics. Like that one James McAvoy, Speak No Evil, that came out, seeing that with my girlfriend. The whole time we're like, no, they didn't just discipline that other family's
Renata,
child.
friend of the show.
Renata, friend of the pod, So it goes downhill, and Paul Rudd, like you said, just has to kind of break it off with him, say we don't want to be your friend anymore, which causes him to spiral, miss him, feel like his life's lost purpose. He then tries to get his wife to do the things that he used to do with Paul Rudd and go on these little goofy adventures, and his kid, and they both hate it. They both don't care. He's trying to recapture the lightning in the ball that was his friendship with Paul Rudd. And as a guy who's had a lot of girlfriends and a few really good friends, this killed me. Because like when they go like into the sewers and on this cool adventure, and it used to be this like almost Stranger Thing type mysticism of like, wow, we're down here, we're on this adventure together. With his wife, it's terrible. She's kind of nagging him, and he's like, just do it. And he flips out. She then gets lost in the sewer for like almost like a quarter of the movie. And a plot point is she might have died. Like, she's missing.
Yeah.
And the whole time, and the pacing of this movie is amazing. It is whiplash, and it does not care about anything sometimes. I love how, when she goes missing, it's so stuck in his perspective that, like, things just kind of happen. It never, like, dives into, like, a police report or anything. It's just kind of like, yeah, I guess she's somewhere in the sewers. I don't know. Like,
well, yeah, because, like, so he can't find her, and then we just cut to him getting home. and you're like,
What happened?
what
Yeah.
happened? And then that's when he's like, oh, I need the phone or whatever, and then it like kind of like escalates. But then that's when the cops show up because of the break-in, right? So
Oh my!
then
I forgot about the break because he broke the window at
yeah,
his
yeah,
friend's house,
yeah.
hanging out. When it's like broken and getting repaired, he goes back over to see him after he's been excommunicated by him. Breaks into his house, steals a gun. Was it Chekhov's gun? Is a literal gun in this movie.
Well, like steals it accidentally, like he
Yeah,
pulls it out,
the
but then he
whole
panics
time.
with the wife is in the
Yeah.
house and he didn't realize. So then he runs out of the house and then he goes to jump the fence and he realizes he's got the gun in his hand. He's like, "Fuck!"
Now, real quick, because I guess I'm trying to describe it so people can just skip the movie, but I should just deep dive because I want people to
Yeah,
see
yeah,
this.
no.
Yeah, yeah.
Spoilers are not meant for summary. Let's talk
Yeah,
about
yeah.
like bits we like, things we didn't like. I
So-
think on that right now, that's better.
So let's just hop in right to that point where he breaks into the house and
Yeah.
he also is on like this important
Because he's
Zoom
delivering
call.
his package.
Yeah,
which I
yeah.
love, the worst mailman in history, apparently.
Yeah, like the inciting incident for like all 3 acts. Actually, it revolves around him getting his mail mixed up with his neighbor. That's Paul Rudd, and they become friends over that chance interaction. So, thematically, once they're no longer friends, he has a package to deliver to him. It's a bad time. So he brings him the package. He's not home. Hops the fence, breaks an entry. Now he goes back into his cool collector's den room, and he's looking at all his cool shit, missing his friend that has now like forsaken him. And he finds a gun, and it's super cool. It's like a customized like Beretta
It
or
looks
something.
like from is it Face Off? Is that when he has
Yeah.
the double golden guns?
Yeah. Just so he finds that, and then he gets a Zoom call, and then while he's on the Zoom call, like that was foreshadowed, he hears Paul Rudd's wife, I guess, or girlfriend, getting up, walking around. Now, what I like about that is later that same day, I think they're supposed to have like a housewarming or something.
Yeah.
And she said, and his lie is that, or he says like, oh, she had diarrhea, so they canceled the party.
Yeah.
I missed that he didn't even call. He was just faking
Yeah,
that
you
call.
could hear the like yeah, the
but-
faint dial tone.
But then I remember thinking like, oh yeah, she was home, and I wondered like if that's because she was sick. And then I was so bought in, I couldn't even hear the of the dial tone. But yeah, so he ends up with this gun. Doesn't come back to the third act, spoiler. But I'm so derailed. There's so many bits to dive in here. What stood out to you, I guess? What were some of the bits? What were some of the moments where you just like were blown
Well, like
away?
for me, I thought it was kind of like it was an interesting open right out of the gate. I found like that kind of like cancer support group that they were at.
Oh,
and then
yeah.
like how he makes. Well, I thought she made it like slightly awkward about like, oh, and then I'll be able to like have orgasm again or whatever. I'm hoping to be able to orgasm again. And then like everyone in this theater reacted the same like and we're all looking at him and we get like secondhand embarrassment on his behalf because he's like making weird faces about it.
Earlier when you said like the Tim Robinson of it all, I forgot, like I wish I saw this an hour before recording because I had so much. But that opener where it's like the close up on her talking about surviving cancer.
Yeah.
As soon as the shot is back enough to reveal Tim Robinson staring at her.
Yeah.
Just the focus pull to his face. Entire crowd popped. Everyone was howling.
Yeah.
Because what did she say? Like, I you probably remember. But she's like, I hate when I cry. And he's like, no, you'll beat it, babe. And
No,
then
she's like, I'm perpetually worried that it's gonna come back, and he's like, it's not gonna come back. Like,
everybody laughed
just,
at that twice as hard. It's
yeah. It's just awkward. Yeah,
just the casting alone gave this movie like a comedy aura. Because, like I said, they racked focus to him.
Yeah.
And then when she's like, I'm worried it's going to come back. And then this first line is not going to come back in a very Tim Robinson way. That the theater popped twice in the first, like, just rack focus and that first line of his. And from the rest of that third act, it was line after line delivery was a laugh.
If he wasn't, like I said, I don't know that he was really involved in the creative process in terms of the writing and everything, but he's certainly, I can't imagine that they didn't write this with him in mind. Because,
oh my God,
like I said, like having not seen all this stuff, like, this was what I expected, and like instantaneously, like, you got that vibe and energy like right out of the gate. And again, like set him up to be like not likable. Like it, like right out of the gate, you get more of a nuanced perspective. Like, yes, he is that buffoon endearing part of him, but then there's also this like obvious insecurity part, like from the hop with him like interjecting on her and then like even making that awkward pass like I'm orgasming fine, to like close that like sequence out at the beginning, and even
Perfect
again like
segue.
yeah, to the
Yeah.
sun. Is that where you were going? Because that's where I
Well,
was going.
well, kind of, because I want you touched on her making out with the orgasm thing, and she says a few times, "I'm going to go hang out with Devin, my ex boyfriend," and he's kind
Yeah,
of checked out. He's a bit aloof. He's got a lot going on, and he never remembers. The audience does, because
yeah,
we're used to girlfriends bringing shit up like that. But I brought this up with Renata, a friend of the pod, my girlfriend. And I said, he's not a perfect man by any stretch, but she's a shitty wife. His wife was kind of the worst in the sense where that
Brandon
kid,
coming out hard of the
a
cancer
hot
victim
take.
in the movie.
Well, here's the thing. The
All
hot take
right.
is by the end of the movie, you kind of forget about her a little bit. You kind of forget about like, but my whole thought was, I'm like, I don't know if they confirm or deny that the son, the kid, was the ex's. It's very implied, but maybe Renata pointed out, maybe she had a kid with him, broke up, and then married Tim Robinson.
Right.
It's never confirmed or denied, but the way Devin talks to her and like one ups him at his own like her survivor party when they
Yeah,
find her in the
yeah, when they
sewers,
find her.
just the way that she kind of like talks down to him and is kind of mean, kind of avoidant, all these small bits. You don't know the whole picture of the marriage. You see his perspective because he's so aloof and checked out.
Right.
But you do wonder if like she stayed with him for the insecurity of her own mortality. And again, when she says at the end, like, I don't want to live with a narcissist, and you, the audience, are like, oh, he's kind of narcissistic, huh? Like, he's all these things, but yeah, he's been so wrapped up in his buddy down the street. His wife got lost in the sewer for like a week or something.
Yeah, we don't know exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Again, the pacing of this movie is one of my favorite bits.
Yeah, it moves.
It moves like it doesn't care what you care about. Like it doesn't care about the timing. It feels almost like how Trauma is, where time is lost in the moments.
Right.
It could be a week so of her being on. It could have been 48 hours. Like
Yeah.
I think they say something on a newscast maybe, but they just keep chugging along from his like warped perspective to every bit that was like affected him, be it his coworkers the following day, where they're making fun of him outside the meeting. It doesn't care about his wife when that's happening. Like it's,
Yeah.
it keeps moving. So
Well,
yeah, what do you think
I
about
want to
that?
scratch the surface more on what you were just saying there, because I think, like, at least from my perspective, like, I feel like, again, you don't know how they got together. They don't like dive into the whole
No
relationship
backstory.
in a big way, which is fine. I think for me, like, I don't know that didn't sympathize with his wife more, in the sense of like even the push, like yes, she talks about like, oh, rekindling a friendship with her ex boyfriend at the beginning, and how that's been like good for her. But like I definitely assume at that point is like, not maybe not instantly when you find that out, but like through his actions. And she says it at some point, she's like, you never listen to me, this is like the fifth time I've told you about this guy and you're always like, who? And so like it makes sense that going through that, maybe like assuming this guy came in during that moment and everything came back in, yeah, like, so like I was sympathetic to her for most of that. And especially I think like, yeah, when she goes missing, and yeah, like again, he loses her in the sewer, and it just like hard cuts to him coming back home kind of casually,
And
and
then
you're
like
like,
him at work the next day, like it really just
yeah,
progresses
yeah, yeah. So
without
like
any answers.
they end up like because again, like all the cop part and the son. I don't know that there was anything that stood out to me that the like specifically suggested that he was the other guy's kid.
He
Other
just had long dark
well, just
hair.
the way they did it was weird too. Like it
Yeah.
just felt like even when that opening scene when she like together where like he kisses her on the lips and he's like, you guys kiss on the lips and whatever. Like I'm like, it wasn't immediately because he was helping her with the business. I'm like, is this a
Yeah.
friend that works? Like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
okay, like it, and yeah, like again, but it's odd and it's not clear. And like again, like I think planting that seed, I think that weird uncertainty just from like an audience perspective of like,
Yeah.
what is the exact nature of these relationships? And then, like, I think that unsettling part, not that unsettling is overstating it, but like that uncertainty kind of allows you to feel a bit more like in line with Tim Robinson's character,
Yeah.
who feels, insecure in that relationship too. And like, obviously, that's kind of like his main thread, right? And I think they're like, to kind of cap this off, I think maybe this is a good time to pivot at least towards that ending sequence, because I thought,
Hmm.
well, I was worried that it was going to end when he was leaving, when he
Yeah.
left and gets in the van to go pick up candles. And it seems like his life is coming back together. And I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this. And
Yeah.
then he pulls back into frame from like the direction he just came, and you're like, oh no, because he sees the car and all this, right?
But before
And
we
so
get
it
into that
derails
part,
that. Okay.
there's the entrance to that third act, and I want to touch on a few parts because that's the finale, and I feel like I want to really kind of chew over. So when they find her, and she has like the housewarming block party to be like, we found her, we brought the vigil, like almost, you know.
Right.
I love that he's in the garage playing his green drum set by himself, and that random guy comes in, and you think there might be like a kindling of a new friendship. Maybe he's
Yeah.
gonna move on. Maybe he learned something, and you think it's gonna go there, and then immediately it's like, yeah, your wife's so hot, dude. You should cherish her all the time. I'd have sex with her platonically. You're an asshole, and he just tears him down. And then that guy later, and this is what like opens my new thesis here, because there's two bits. One bit being, this movie is a fever dream because it is a feature film about a side character in the wife's movie. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's a side character in someone else's movie, I feel. He's the quirky neighbor. He's like the Bill from King of the Hill. And he's a whole feature where he is just on his own wavelength. Because when he leaves to go outside, and I think he has a cigarette, he just goes outside and stands in the cold while everyone's having a conversation. That guy who calls him an asshole start talking about the Iraq war on the chair.
Afghanistan. That's where he's like, and I believe we shouldn't have pulled out of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
That was the part that got me and Sam. I'm like,
Yeah.
yo, this thing's going off.
This guy, it's just
I think
random.
He had a Vietnam hat or jacket or something.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
like, but yeah, he goes on and starts delivering his speech, and then it cuts like where the camera's in the house, but we just looking at Tim Robbins. You just hear like, yeah, and I disagree about pulling that.
Yeah. And that one sequence alone, especially after you see the Devin, say what a love, like after he one ups his speech, man, what a loving mom, and he holds her tight and like grabs the kid, and they embrace. He goes, what a loving mom, and strong, and it's like a way better speech than what Tim Robinson said. Even though he said like, I don't know, 6 out of 10, pretty good. Maybe he's going to turn it around. Devin comes in with a way more heartfelt, way more better received speech. And then Tim Robinson leaves, and then the other guy hops back up, and that's when I like the voyeuristic camera angle of him walking out as a party continued without him really started to get me in that mindset of like, he's not the main character, he's a funny side character going through incredible tragedy. Which I want to loop back to another scene that like absolutely broke me. Like I was wheezing in the theater. And this is funny because you get this bit about me. I am like the king of fast food, basically. Like I'm always eating fast food. I'm always out of the house. I'm never home. And when Tim Robinson's at like his lowest point in the film, he goes back to like a T-Mobile booth in the mall or something to talk to this kid who's like a drug dealer, and he's like, yeah, I need ayahuasca because he read that book on Paul Rudd's desk, and he's like, I need a spiritual enlightenment because my life's falling apart, everything's going wrong. So and I want to say this is a double parter. This is like the Joe Rogan Experience pivot in the movie. This is right after it goes as far downhill as possible. He's like, I needed to do drugs and to figure out my mental thing. So he's like, oh, I have a toad. You can lick the toad for $100 and have a great psychedelic trip. And this guy in the movie, I want to point this out, it's one of the few, if not only times he says, I love you. And it's to Tim Robinson. He never says it to his wife. I think he says this at the end to Paul Rudd maybe, or he wants to. Or
in his vision.
So in his vision, what ends up happening is he gets laid down in the T-Mobile booth. He's sitting there on cardboard on the floor. T-Mobile booth guy is like really nice to him, like
T-boy or something they call him.
T-boy,
when he lets his hair down, he's T-boy.
yeah. My actual drug dealer is D-boy. No, I'm kidding. So T-boy lets him lick the toad, and he starts going into like, again, when I keep waiting for was like this A24 ethereal fever dream. And it was a very grounded and like normal experience of Tim Robinson at a Subway sandwich shop at like 2 a.m, like nobody's there. It's missing a sneeze guard. That blew my. I was like, that's going to come into play, and I'm projecting. I'm like, that's going to be a part of this thing where you can't protect your. Like I was so zoned in, and Paul Rudd's the Subway sandwich worker, and he's like just having a conversation about lunch. Like I had nothing conversation, and then he just wakes up, and I was
T-Boy comes
wheezing.
back and is like, hey man, how was your trip? He's like,
dude. Again,
it's
the
a
pacing.
minute long. I just ordered a fucking sub at Subway.
Yeah, and when he's got a 30-minute break, and he comes back in within 30 seconds of the trip starting, and it interrupts the trip, and it was Paul Rudd having like a nothing conversation with our protagonist who's high, and it just like it hit me so hard because I feel like, man, when you turn to like substance abuse for like an answer, and you find yourself with this ethereal plane. And it's just like the most like it's like a weird grab bag of feelings, and he's like a Subway sandwich talking to an old version of his friend who excommunicated him. And I was just like, man, this movie gets me. It gets a lot of like what I don't know. So the male loneliness condition. I know June's Pride, but it's also Men's Health Awareness Month. And I didn't clap at that point, but I was clapping mentally. I was like, this bit was for me. I feel like I've had those moments, be it with substances or weird fever dreams, just where like a friend or an ex or whatever, you don't get any closure. The closure you get is the closure you make, and I love that through line. So anyways, the Subway sandwich hallucination bit killed me.
Yeah, that was really good.
Like I was wheezing, and Renata looked over at me, and I was like almost crying. I was like, I'm still recovering from that bit because it felt so personal to me that he would have a fever dream about fast food. And then, so the two bits to set up the finale that you were getting at is when his wife goes missing, Paul Rudd, as a guy who was pressing charges, is now like, let me help you find her. You took her to do our thing. So you're getting these little bits of like Paul Rudd not just being an asshole. I think it hints at him maybe being a bit selfish or narcissistic, trying to like big himself up to this like loser neighbor guy that Renata pointed out. But in my head, I was like, no, that guy's just sick. He tries to help her find her. They end up in jail. Paul Rudd and our main character, they end up in jail for trespassing or doing something. And
when they're looking for the wife, they admit to breaking into City Hall through the
doing
sewers.
It before,
and then Tim Robinson totally sells out Paul Rudd.
Yeah,
like, he told me he did this before. And just like, totally blew it for him.
So they end up in jail, and Paul Rudd's doing his natural charisma thing. Everyone loves him in jail. And then I forget how he slips, and you find out he's got a hairpiece. Pee from a hobo or whatever. Yeah. So he slips, and you find out he's got a hairpiece, and he's like saying like, don't tell anybody. Yeah. And much like the gun, this is not Schrodinger's cat. Chekhov's hairpiece. Chekhov's gun. Chekhov's hairpiece. At the end of the movie, the car that Paul Rudd said he was going to buy when he got his dream job, which he said he was inspired to apply for his dream job because of him. Like, there's this weird sweetness in this movie where I almost don't hate Paul Rudd for pivoting. He got embarrassed in front of all his friends by a guy he doesn't know that well, a guy that he opened up really quickly to, and a guy that pushed him to do more with his life because he gave him this like confidence boost. Like, you are really cool, dude. I really like. But then you see Paul Rudd, he's the butt of the joke at the news station, and he messes up his first day, and he's having a genuinely stressful time. The last thing he needs is his, kind of annoying neighbor that embarrassed him the night before with his buddies. Like,
who he broke up with, too.
Yeah. So you can kind of understand him, even though he is kind of like the ultimate antagonist to our main character. That's why I was trying to say, like, I almost started to hate his wife, because I don't know where to put that frustration, because I wanted to hate on Paul Rudd.
And naturally, Brandon found the woman to put it in.
Well, so the end of the movie comes around. Oh, this is the Joe Rogan train. The end of the movie's coming around, and after he has his ayahuasca trip, he is like, okay, I left my wife. I just got to focus on me. He's doing like the self-help kind of thing. He lost his job from beating up the mayor, so now he's like giving up parking tickets, which is such a job for him. He's doing all this stuff, and he's trying to be like on his grind. He's trying to be like a more red pill man. Is kind of what the vibe I got. Like, he lost his male connection right when his marriage is failing him. His son didn't respect him, and now he's like a red pill stand-in, working his job, trying to get back to normal. And through his hard work, investing in himself, good message, he gets more money. He figures out his life. He finds a place of peace again, and with that, he's able to kind of man up in some traditional ways. He tells the guy at the restaurant to, apologize to his wife. which makes her realize, oh, my man's standing up for me, he's paying attention to me, maybe this is just a marital thing. The end of the movie's coming, and you feel like it might wrap up sweetly, where they split up, and maybe she might give him a chance. Maybe this is like the midlife crisis that he was having. Like, it's, not that crazy. So, he said something like, "Oh, I'll go for, was it vanilla ice cream or
He needed
candles or
candles.
something?"
Yeah.
He needs candles for his son's birthday, and she's saying like, "Oh, you're working out, you're getting in good shape." It's implying that she's digging him. She might take him back. She might even jump his bones. She's really into him again. And so you're kind of like with him. He buys her the minivan that's a through line throughout the movie. She's complaining she doesn't have enough space for her small business. So you see all these good guy things being rewarded through his hard work, his investment in himself, and the Greek tragedy of it all. And I agree. I would have crashed out too. When he's driving down the road, he sees his neighbor's Corvette, the one that he said, as soon as I get my job, man, you're the first guy I'm taking with you in this thing. So he's in his driveway, sees all his friends are over, and he has that moment of like, do I continue on where I get my wife back, I get my life back, or do I like make a scene here? And he makes a scene. He pulls in that drive. He hits the speed bumps that he was proud that he got installed.
Yeah.
There's so many layers to this movie. Summarizing and podcasting about it, like it does not do any justice. I really hope people have seen this, and this is just like an additive cathartic laugh about it. Because, yeah, he bottoms out the minivan that he just bought on the speed, like blows it right up, crashes into the driveway, goes into the broken back door with the gun, and now he's holding them all hostage and giving them a piece of his mind, and a bit of a school shooter vibe, but he's holding them all accountable. He's saying his piece, and then in the chaos, you have to remind me, because I got like point A and point C, but point B might be lost here. Paul Rudd falls over and he loses his toupee.
So he Paul Rudd lunges for the gun at some point, and it goes off, which makes like all of the friends duck and cover, and Paul Rudd falls over. But that's when his hairpiece falls off. And yeah, this is like the kind of moment that I wanted to talk about with you, because I wasn't sure really how I felt about it. Like, not, is it a good or bad? Like, I'm just like, oh, that's an interesting way that they went with it, because so his toupee falls off, and Tim Robinson sees that it's fallen off.
He sees everyone's getting their feet, looking back over.
So he plays up the hostage thing more. So he's like, keep your heads down, and he's like, hey man, your hairpiece fell off. And so like Paul Rudd then starts like putting it back on, and he keeps yelling at everybody. So none of them.
This is so sweet.
So none of them see that Paul Rudd has the toupee. And so, but then again, in reality, he's like semi holding these people hostage. But it's so they all still think Paul Rudd's cool and doesn't have this hairpiece. So then that's where in Paul Rudd, he's like, okay, it looks good. And then so he's like, all right, guys, I'm sorry. Like, he gives it up. He didn't want to do that. It just like, it kind of happened, and he did it for that bit. And then that's when they give him this last fantasy moment, is where Paul Rudd is like carrying his body out and stuff like that, and they're all there, but then he cuts to the flash of him saying, bye boys, like, yeah, take it easy man, see you next time, and they all have a thing. And that's when him and Paul Rudd share this fake moment of
I
like,
love you part, right?
I love you, buddy. And then he cuts back to him, and he's just in the back of the police car, like staring at them all in the garage talking. And that's when Paul Rudd kind of looks and gives him a wink, and and he lights right up, and then friendship, and that's the title bit.
My theater stood up and applauded. Like, I've had a few ovations this year, and I got chills. That fucking cinema.
It was a great, like, it made a movie that I like, as I like, because when they faked me out with the ending where I thought like, oh, they're wrapping this up and like he got his shit together way, I started thinking about the ending. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I like love that for this. And then it didn't end that way, so I'm going, but I'm like, how are you gonna wrap this up well? And I thought that was like, yes, again, it was this weird kind of thing. Like, we're in an age where like nuance is completely out the window, but there was nuance to this situation. Like, obviously he's crazy, obviously he's got these issues, but like deep down it is still an affectionate, like he does love him and they are friends. or at least he wants to be. Like, it's a genuine feeling from him. So like, yeah, like, and again, to be fair, like, his transgression, is not big. Like, it's
Yeah.
super weird. Like, again, the punch thing, he probably could have recovered from that, no problem. But it wasn't until he like makes it weird and like, was I a bad boy, and puts soap in his
Oh
mouth
yeah.
and like makes it so much weirder. Like, I think that's what notches it into the irredeemability factor, which, like, yeah, would totally throw me off too.
Yeah.
So like, you understand everybody, but I thought it was a nice, because normally you don't get this, right? Like, if
No.
it's a crazy person and it's like, yeah, like, they're crazy and having these crazy visions and whatever, and they're just like psychotic and whatever. But to make the kind of final note of this be like a little bit of a human moment and acknowledge
Yeah.
like genuine feeling and friendship there, like, yeah, like how much worse he just made his own life to make sure Paul Rudd's friends did not notice that Paul Rudd has a toupee was a sweet moment to end this wild roller coaster of a movie on, for sure.
I like that because too the movie's called Friendship. It's not called a midlife crisis. It's about this specific friendship with Paul Rudd, and it's a very, I think, like a hyper exaggerated or hyper focused version of a lot of male friendships. But it ends on that note. It does, and assumedly you don't care because he doesn't care. His wife and kid are back at the house
Yeah,
waiting
for the
for dad
candles.
to come home with candles on his birthday. They're traumatized, dude. Like, and it wraps up in this beautiful, and I would dare say Shakespearean level tragedy, where even in his moment of vengeance and wrath, he finds empathy for a man that he just wanted to be friends with. And it's just like, I don't know, dude. Like, for me, that ending was such a bow on the film. A film that the first third I was like, great, can't wait. The second third I was like, no, my boy, you've massacred
Yeah.
my boy. And the third, the whole time I was trying to think, how do I deal with this? How do I quantify it? How do I letterbox it? How do I talk about it?
Yeah.
And that third act does so much heavy lifting between like the the what do you call it, the philosophy where nothing matters.
Yeah.
I'm missing. There's a word for that.
Like nihilism, is that
Nihilism. The nihilistic drug trip is again one of the best bits because that feels lol so random, but it feels kind of earned because this guy is so destitute. The fact that he gets shortchanged, and
Yeah.
even when he goes to that seedy bar, everything is like. This feels like the funniest version of that so random comedy in a Wes Anderson movie where they mention a seedy bar that's seedy for no reason and everybody knows that. But then they go there and he's like, yeah, I'm just having a boot. And you think he's trying to be like a Midwest kind of funny man. And then you see he's drinking out of a boot. And again, everybody laughed. Not a lot of misses in this movie. And I think it doesn't miss because it is actually a tragic fever dream. And I think like, I don't know who I'd put this on for. I don't know how I would recommend it. Like, I don't think I could recommend this to my mom or your mom. They'd be like, what? Why would they do that?
Yeah.
Why would they punch him? But I do think that, this movie, for people who like movies, if you like Wes Anderson movies, this is like infinitely better.
So don't get tangented on
I shan't. That's
a
for
whole
the next
other
week.
episode. Yeah. No,
But,
I
loved it.
think for me, like, it was definitely fun. I do wish I saw it on opening weekend. I think, like, I mean, that could have been good and bad. I think there would have been a duality to that. But,
Yeah.
like, with those fans, like, I feel like that because he is, like, a very beloved guy in the internet meme culture now. And I think that, like, with even, like, again, this is why comedies, like, this is why I hate that they've transitioned so much to streaming, because this is a classic example of why an experience like this is great at the theater, because like you said, like, how much of it is elevated by everyone laughing and like everyone cringing and like going through those moments together. Like, I really think it just elevates how you feel about a movie like that. Things are funnier when you're there sharing it with another person, as opposed to sitting in your living room looking at your phone doing other shit. So yeah, like there's if this is playing, there's still people going. Like go see this movie for sure, and bring people with you that you think would have a good time. And yeah, definitely give it a watch because it
To
was definitely worthwhile, I'd say.
to add to that too is like to close out. Yeah, seeing it second week of being in theaters and having just true fans there was awesome because they weren't there for like the oh it's Tim Robinson part. It was like a genuine bunch of people that heard word of mouth and really wanted to see it. But yeah, like I would call it like an elevated comedy because again the tragedy was elevated. It was
Yeah.
cringy. It was hard to watch sometimes, especially when empathetically you got invested in these characters in that first third of the movie. That first act was so like classically funny. But yeah, there's also weird stuff too where they talk about or they reference that the drum kit's green and the door to his house is green and you know the A24 of it is like there's a little bit of weird color symbolism. There's a weird little bit of elevated storytelling there that's not necessarily always found in like Talladega Nights.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I couldn't recommend this movie enough. It hit like on a surface level, then it hit on a very core emotional level for me. And yeah, I'd say like it's one of my favorite comedies to come in the last almost 2 decades. It was
Wow.
yeah, I mean, can you name a comedy that you saw recently that was worth recommending on the podcast?
Off the top of my head?
Nope. I win. No, you
Yeah.
can't.
No, well, in 20 years though, I feel like that gives me a lot more material to work with.
I should say 10 years that I've seen in theaters because yeah, comedies have fallen out of movie theaters completely.
Yeah,
So
it's super true. So yeah, I think well to pivot to the the opposite end of the comedic spectrum.
yeah, elevated comedy to elevated horror. Now let's
Well,
talk about
I do have a beef with the elevated aspect of this, but Bring Her Back by the same guys that did Talk to Me.
the Raka Raka
Also
brothers.
A24.
Yep.
A24 themed episode. But yeah, they who were YouTubers that I guess they've done work on film, like as like not gophers necessarily, but they did like behind the scenes jobs and stuff on different sets apparently before.
Yeah, and they've done
And
a lot
then-
of their YouTube work is like very stylistically there
and
too.
so they jumped in with Talk to Me now. I guess to summarize my opening thoughts, I was more mid on Talk to Me than a lot of people. Like, it got a lot of raves and people were very pleased with it. I thought it was a solid first outing. I think my problem with it, and we'll get into this more, is that when it ended, I just was like, okay. Like, I had an enjoyable enough time, but it was a movie that basically the moment it ended, it was already out of my brain.
I want to say, I remember I saw this with you as one of our first theater experiences in a pre-podcast world. I remember the part of the movie you talked about the most was how at the start of the movie I dead sprinted down the aisles to get a White Claw from your Montreal Scotiabank theater.
That's Ty's favorite story.
Yeah, I ran out of the theater because it's like we still got 5 minutes. and
I forgot
dead
that
sprinted.
was Talk to Me. So yeah, you ran out to get out. You told Ty, you're like, I'm gonna go get a White Claw. I have just enough time to go get a White Claw, and you darted out of there. And then how Ty remembers it is you came back in like slunked posture, and you were
So
just
sad.
meandering back in, and then you sat down next to Ty and went, they don't have any White Claws. So yeah. Oh, there you go, White Claw. We're bringing it around. But yeah, I think by the time I saw it with you, I think that was the second time because I wanted to give it another try. I was like, oh, maybe I just wasn't, in the right space or whatever. But I just kind of felt more reassured at that point. I think with Bring Her Back, I think I guess to give the initial like very basic setup again, there's these two kids who get adopted by a foster mom, and it's creepy, weird stuff starts going on from there. I like keeping the things incredibly vague. And I think, like, again, that's all you should really need on a setup. It is a horror movie. It has some very well done graphic moments that we'll definitely talk about that were definitely very eerie and unsettling. But yeah, ultimately for me in a non-spoiler sense, I felt the exact same way about this really than I did after Talk to Me. The movie ends and I felt like again, consistently I was following along. It was fine. I didn't really have any issues. Again, there was these moments of like real gore that were like incredible, like face cringing. And I've seen a lot of stuff and I was still wincing at a lot of the stuff and the sound design and whatnot. And then for me, it was just a matter of the credits hit, and then I just instantly felt empty again from it. And I think that to me is really where the struggles with these guys are, and we'll talk about it. But yeah, for me, it's like if you're really hungry for this horror stuff, if you like Talk to Me, I think you will like this one again. It's a little different in terms of like I think it was much. I don't like the term elevated horror generally because like and especially in this case, I really don't think it's elevated at all. It just does touch on real themes,
Yeah.
like more serious themes, but that does not make it intelligent. And I think that's where one of these gaps will appear. But yeah, for me, that was kind of my high level vibe. Like I thought it was fine while I was watching it, and then like literally the moments the credits hit, I was instantly being like I was moved on. But yeah, that's my kind of like high level spoiler free thoughts. But I think you were a bit more positive about it than I was.
Yeah, I guess to start off, I went on a Tuesday movie night, the cheap night, where the price is
Oh
cheaper than
no, Brandon! Oh no!
the price is cheaper than the Cineplex Cinemember price. That should be my first red flag. I also went to Yonge and Dundas Square. That's kind of like the combination of your two theaters, the Forum that has all the indie movies, all the foreign movies.
Right.
A lot of theaters, really easy to sneak around in, a pain to get concessions. But also it's got that downtown crew where a homeless guy
Busy.
can walk in, busy. Yeah, I don't know how my first thought was a homeless guy can walk in, but think of the beekeeper. But so, anyway, so this theater we went to, it was funny because as we were talking about friendship, I never mentioned like the A24 pretentious stink coming off of it, even though they say, oh, it's a Marvel.
I mean, you did
And
refer to it as elevated comedy.
elevated, well, deservedly. Because I guess what I'm getting at is I had a bit of a nightmare screening experience. It was a packed theater on Tuesday night. Good crowd, lots of reactions, except for the couple to my left and the couple to my right, who were A24 letterbox aficionados, who at every moment of like thematic resonancy would explain it to their partner because they're so smart. They're so pick me. Honey, aren't I the smartest letterbox girly? So F you to you.
Do you yell at these people? Like how I would maybe let that go once before I dealt with it.
I think I did it to myself because we got there. I think I texted you saying like, "Oh, dude, I'm gonna
Yeah,
hate this movie," because we were running late. We showed up 5 minutes late. They're still doing pre-show, so we sat through 5 trailers. And during the trailers, that's when I kept hearing the letterbox takes of like, "Oh, I saw this thing on IndieWire or Variety or." What's the other big one? But yeah, they're talking about like all these things, and it's like all the same podcasty type stuff. I'm sure you and I listen to. These two women were regurgitating to their boyfriends who clearly didn't care, and I was like, whatever. But when the movie was going on, I swear, if like it's a horror movie, people die, no spoiler. When somebody dies, they go, "Oh, that's a callback to that thing," and it's like I would have hated to see The Monkey or Final Destination with them because anytime. Oh, the penny got caught in the train tracks. That's a call back to the time with it. It's like, yeah, it's obvious. You're not that smart. You're not that smart, Sandra.
Yeah, my favorite is like when it's not in this movie, but it's like there's bits where it's like, oh, the killer's definitely this guy, and they go,
Yeah.
I bet it's this guy. Like they say it super loud, like, and you're like, no shit, okay?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
basically just show us that, and they're like, oh, I bet it's the dad or whatever. Like they just say it, and you're like, shut the
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
never let that go.
Yeah,
at
so
all.
left
I
and
would
right,
kill that instantaneously.
My stereophonic hearing experience was Letterbox Girly A and to be fair, Letterbox Boy B.
Yeah.
And then 2 rows ahead of us, a guy was on his phone for like, I would say, I feel bad too because I checked my watch very briefly, and it was legitimately 4.5 minutes of screen time. His phone was just out.
Bro,
And
you need to start standing up for the theater going experience,
well,
dude.
Renata, see, here's my thing too. Is I'm kind of like, oh, you see that dangerous lion next to your car? Do you go poke it with a stick so it gets out of the road? No, it'll move on. Renata, my girlfriend, friend of the podcast, was getting ready to throw a like half-empty water bottle at the guy, and I was like, that will fucking ruin the experience.
Well,
So I get
yeah, you
it.
gotta speak up before it escalates to that point.
As a true fan of cinema, I don't think a fist fight solves the movie theater
No,
experience.
but just literally today, I'll bring it up next week, but they were talking through the opening credits. I'm like, I can let this slide a little bit, but then
Yeah.
they kept doing it, and I just turned around and I said, hey, do you guys mind? Not a fucking peep for the whole rest of the movie. I was polite, I was nice. I cut it off before it got too like in the weeds, but yeah, no, it definitely can be a pain. But you need to let it's it's like what's the bit? If you see something, say something. Like
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not an advocate for having to leave the theater, but you need to tell people because it will totally derail your experience if you constantly are not even distracted. Like we're the type of people that it might distract us initially, but then we fixate on it and we need
Yeah.
to deal with it. Or it's just gonna color everything else we
Well, I think I
see.
told you I saw the movie Bad Boys 4 in theaters, and it was again a Tuesday night, and this guy had his phone out the entire time.
Yeah.
And he was like 5 rows ahead of me. And
Oh,
I just
yeah,
remember
yeah.
thinking, this is Bad Boys 4. I don't care. By the end, my heart rate on my Apple Watch said it was like 140 beats per minute sitting in a movie theater because I was getting so angry that I was like, do I go down and like slap it out of his hand? Because after 30 minutes, and then me still not doing anything, I'm like, this is a me problem. Anyways, but to
Yeah.
go back to the movie, yeah, I had two letterbox people that kept having their letterbox like, oh, that's thematic. Oh, the color of this. Even though I was the one saying that last time around, they were doing it in the theater. Me talking about the color green and friendship, like it's
Yeah.
this big Jay
That was
Gatsby.
literally 7 minutes ago in the podcast.
Yeah, yeah. So, but then the killer, and I gotta preface this. This might be spoiler talk because I think Shea gave his general statements pretty good here. The killer, absolute theater ruining experience was they were 5 grown men and maybe 1 woman behind me, who I could smell. They had not showered or used deodorant, and I could smell them very egregiously. And then when you find out the protagonist in this movie has a trauma around showering and he gets a Axe body can spray as like an insult to injury, I died because I could only smell the people behind me. And I just was like, I was the other antagonist. I was the antagonist of the protagonist. Be like, go on, love, have some Axe body spray because you hate showering. Because, yeah, there's a big thing in the movie. The protagonist's father beat him in the shower and died in the shower. So when he goes to shower, he has like a PTSD panic attack, and he has to like shower himself off with a hose in the yard. It's really tragic. This movie's really dull. Not dull, very grim, very grim.
Bleak.
And the fact, yeah, bleak. And the fact that like those really like traumatic themes in this movie were so tied to the people I could smell behind me. I like the movie a lot more than Shea.
You were literally having what do they call that? A 5DX experience?
I was having yeah, let's
You
clipify
could
this.
smell a vision.
Say, hey Brandon, what was your 5DS experience in the or 4DX experience in Bring Her Back? And I'd say it's the 5 people who smelled so bad that every time the movie mentioned taking a shower and having a panic attack from their dead dad who died in the shower, I had a conniption. And when they hand the Axe body spray, I looked behind me like this, and I just was like, do you get it? Do you guys get the theme of this movie?
So you won't yell at people, but you'll strongly look at people to imply they should use more Axe body spray.
Yeah, especially if they're behind me, because I can see you've got a bit of a mullet going on here, and that if you have a mullet, you're a little unhinged and white trash. So,
I
anyways,
feel bad because I was gonna say like you. I was gonna say you look like a guy that should smell bad. But you dress well. I'm not saying you dress bad.
Yeah,
Just the mullet and we're big white guy. We look like people that shouldn't.
No, I get you, but yeah. So to to ground us, I'm that's so clippable. Thank you. I needed that as the social manager of the pod. I really needed that.
We had to get it. But yeah, no, I think like Well, it sucks. Like I said, I dodge cheap Tuesdays. I've only gone if Adriana's like pulled me, and it's been to something like I don't really care
Yeah.
too much about, or if it's something we saw twice. I went on a Tuesday. But my rule of thumb is like it's hard enough when people like the people that are going and paying full price don't act right. I feel like in my experience, it's always worse with people that aren't paying, near that much, and I'll flock on that day. Like
Yeah.
it makes it more difficult. And yeah, like for me, it's not worth it. It's not worth it because like you said, that's multiple battles you would have had to have tried to fight.
Yeah.
One of which you can do nothing about. You can't
Yeah.
do anything unless you just start Febrezing the people behind
Like
you.
that's the thing. The letterbox couples, I will admit, I felt amongst my peers in a lot of ways because I gave me content to bitch about on the pod.
Right.
And one of those moments was the letterbox boy in front of me. Every time something remotely gross happened, like I'm not like I mean, there's a few big gross out moments.
Yeah.
So let me preface it this way. There's a moment because I've wasted so much time talking about the shitty experience. I might as well double down. So a great bit in this movie, which is like so again, it's so on brand for these filmmakers on their second movie. They doubled down. They're like, "Oh, do you love creepy horror visuals combined with children hurting themselves? Have we got a film for you?" So the boy who starts eating melon off the knife, and he's like, "Oh,
The sound of that, dude.
the
I've not
sound
been
when
able
you
to
see
shake
it." Dude, it's again, I would say for what I expect out of either horror or just movies in general to evoke such a strong feeling, masterful filmmaking. However, the guy in front of me, every time something semi-gross, like not like murder, but just like
Right.
gross, he would go, oh, like every time.
To let us know that he finds that appalling.
Yes, and that's where I started building my case for the letterbox crowd because he was one of the people being like, the thematic stuff. But and then later on, it's a moment that you probably don't even remember. The boy, I think, slaps a fly on the window and eats it.
Yep.
Very small, super small moment. It's like background happens while they're having a different moment elsewhere. Same thing, And I just almost like hit him in the back of the head to be like, "Hey, princess, tighten my friggin' trucker cap," being like, "Welcome to a Filippo Raka Raka horror movie in 2025. It's gonna be a little gross. Bear with me," because it was just like, I get people going like screaming, like Renata screamed a few times in this movie, and I like when the moments happen, but when the fly moment happened, that was such a small bit, and he was like. It felt like a performative. Oh, brother!
Yeah,
I was like, "Fuck, get
it's
out of
a
here."
weird bit in theater, like, and it's only happened to me like once where this moment has stood out to me in a way that it noticed because it's like normally when you're at a movie like that, the idea is like it's the shared experience. So whatever someone voices, you're feeling, right? And that's
it's cathartic.
usually how that works, and that's when it's at its best. But like even like in the similar fashion of that, when we watched, it was one of the 4 times I watched Mission. There were people that were reacting incorrectly, and I say that being like in the subway. I'm still in the last movie. In the submarine scene, they're like giddy and laughing, and I totally understand. Like, having seen by the 4th time, I'm like fascinated by all of it and whatever. But like in a moment where I was like holding my breath and I'm like like tense and I'm like holy jeez, and these guys are like whoa, I'm like bro, not the vibe. But you can't like you're telling them they're reacting wrong, like that doesn't make any sense, and there's nothing you can do. So I get that, but that's a little different than just like again these like audible bits. Like there was another one too where they were like at a movie where they like were like every time it was Poor Things, every time something like weird or like off-putting happened, he'd be like ugh.
Oh, what the hell?
They would do ugh. Then there's a scene where the two girls are like, I think they were having sex or something, and he goes, oh. So there was like I'm like, well, thanks, buddy. I guess we have a very clear sense of how you feel about all this.
To chime in on that and like catch the magic of cinema goers there. The opposite reaction I find is more genuine. I think like what you said, like. Yeah, let's say you're in a theater with a guy who you could judge to be maybe mildly homophobic, and he'd be like, oh, and then when something sexier happens, he's like, oh, like full pickle, uh, Emma Stone, full frontal, so at least you're
Yeah.
like, okay, that his character arc to you was summarized there was,
Yeah.
doesn't like full pickle, loves Emma Stone getting railed.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. And again, the Mission Impossible thing, the pressure was ratcheting up and up and up. It's probably knowing to you because you had your feeling and you knew how most reactions were, and this was an oddity that a group of teens were
Yeah.
laughing. But I could also make the case that the tension was getting higher and higher, that you would laugh because it was like, they're really doing that. That's crazy, But my
Yeah.
point to my guy is that, like Letterbox, like any social media, like, do you remember people used to be they'd go on a YouTube video or Instagram post and go first, and they would
Yeah.
comment.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was this guy. I think what you said when one or two people in the theater has a reaction that you're feeling, it's cathartic.
Yeah.
This guy was definitely trying to be the first guy to go, oh, brother, when they did something gross and
Right.
bring her back. And that's where I started to go, oh, okay, you're farming me. You're trying to be impactful in my theater experience the way that you want your Letterbox review to be reviewed and thought as important when you say it was X, Y, and Z. So it was this weird, like, micro content brain I was having of, like, this guy who's overreacting overly appropriately after we've been seasoned with gore and awful things happening is going, oh, brother, to a kid eating a fly. I was like, get out of here. So
I love you to death, and I realize the context in which I'm saying this, but I worry sometimes that you're also chronically online, that you have this whole backstory about this person's logic and why they were doing it.
He's fighting with his girlfriend outside, and this was his release. Like, I'm
This
psychoanalyzing it.
letterboxed aura that he has.
Yeah.
Yeah. We gotta get ourselves
about the
back on
movie.
track, because I think
This is
I
what
wanna
Adriana's
talk
good for.
about
She
this.
really bring us back.
I wanna
Bring us back.
hone in on because I think at least in the notes you sent me, I think you gave this a 4, which I think is like criminally way too high. I think that's flirting with like love it territory, and I feel like this movie. Let me make my case as to why I feel that this. I don't get these guys, like, as filmmakers. I don't understand the hype. I feel like the hype around this one is less than it was around Talk to Me, at least in my experience with it. I don't know that that's true, but the thing for me is that, like, not even like a mild wide inch deep. Like, this is just so surface in almost every facet of this thing, and this is why I kind of pinpointed my issue when you said, like, you brought up like the kind of like the elevated horror part of this. I mean, there's nothing.
No,
This tackles things like grief and the loss of a child in the sense that those things happened, but in no way do they truly meaningfully engage with that at all. And I think this is where. Because I was trying to understand, like, when the movie ended, like, I was enjoying myself, and then it ends, and I was like, why did I not feel this? Like, I was feeling this consistently. On a technical level, I think they do things really well. Like, you were saying, that gore stuff, like, the sound of him chomping that knife has not left my ears in
the
2 or whatever
lip
weeks.
and cleft, like,
yeah. They nail
the
that
bloated
stuff.
belly,
All of that stuff is super good. It's
the
super
car hit.
memorable. Yeah. They nail this stuff on a technical level, but I think they're way out of their depth when it comes to playing with these themes. Like, I feel like these guys would just absolutely kill a fun slasher kind of movie, like a straightforward, basic. Let's not fuck around. Trying
they
to
could do
introduce
Hard Eyes.
Well, yeah, like, genuinely, like, I feel like that's in there. And I mean this as a compliment, because I love those kinds of movies. But I feel like even with Talk to Me, like, there was these bits of, like, seriousness and backstory, and it's all surface. There's nothing to it. If you're not going to use it to draw really strong feelings out of me, then don't. And I feel like that's what bothers me the most about these two movies, is that, like, it's like the pieces added up to something lesser than what they individually were. And, like, I liked so many of these beats together, none of it worked. in its total package in a way that I wanted. And again, like the gore, the horror components, like there's a less of them like than I guess maybe you would expect, but the ones that are there are incredibly effective and all of that.
Yeah.
Like I genuinely loved those moments. They were super solid. And shocking stuff too. Like even it's not like a gore thing, but like when when the mom hits the kid, the deaf kid at
Oh
night,
my God, punches her in
holy
the face.
shit! And it doesn't. There's
The
no
whole theater
trickery.
erupted.
Yeah,
The
there's
whole
no
theater went,
trickery. Like I mean, obviously there's trickery, but they don't like cut away. They don't
yeah.
cut in to mask it. Like it just all of a sudden solidly
It
happens.
would have been easier to stomach if she slit her throat. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
The fact that
like
it was just a punch in the
such
face to a sleeping child.
yeah, and it was
Yeah.
crazy. Like they
Yeah.
nail these bits, but
Yeah.
then the reasons, the motivation, the things that they're using to drive all of this forward is ridiculously surface. And I want to close this with one last point before I toss this up to you to give back on, because one of the things I read, and I tweeted about it at the time, was that people were like shitting on these guys for being YouTubers. And I was like because some another review guy said something to the effect of like the best movie out right now is made by 2 YouTubers, and people were like harping on that derogatory, and I was like, that's dumb, just writ large. Like that's such a medium, right, for people for the last 15-20 years. Like
Yeah.
that's such a stupid argument. But then it made me think of like these guys that make content are now filmmakers, and I'm like, now see, this is a criticism that makes a bit more sense to me. It is so surface. Like the execution is there, the style is there, the depth of it is non-existent. And I mean this in kind of the sense that it's a perfect forgettable movie. It's a perfect, like I always harp on like these ways you recommend movies where like, yeah, if you're looking for something to put on and just like pay attention, you can do that. This is probably to me like an elevated version of Slop. Like it's got more going for it on a technical level. It's not as basic. It's not as like there's clear effort put in. I'm not harping that, but there is nothing here deeper in at all. And they're the ones that set it up. It's not that I'm bringing baggage to the movie. Like you're dealing, like a lot of this movie is like loss and my dad and losing my child and flashbacks and like all of these things that I'm totally okay with, but you never do anything with to draw it out of me. And so like I wondered if that criticism of like maybe like in this world where it's like content is the concept, that yeah, this is good content by that metric, is it a decent movie with the kind of themes they do? Like I don't think so.
All right, Roger Ebert, I got one for you. So my whole thing, my antithesis to you and what you're saying is that I think in 2025, with the Gen Z attention span, that is, I wouldn't even say it's a Gen Z thing. I think my brain's rotting equally fast. I just want to say that I think you have a very valid point. I think you compare the pacing of this to The Godfather. Of course, this is like just skin deep, super quick. It doesn't dive into it. But I think I liked it for the opposite reasons that you're hating on it for. The fact that they don't dive into any of it sometimes, love it. I love that the dad dies from what you can assume is like he slipped and fell. He had a stroke. Was it a drug? You don't know. Don't care. What I loved about Friendship is that it feels like a fever dream, so the pacing kind of goes along in an irrelevantly relevant sense. Nothing that should matter does, and you focus on the story's perspective. And this movie, I would say it is kind of like a great way to kind of describe grieving or not dealing with grief. You never really see them deal with their grief. The main antagonistic woman from the children's services, she gets asked point blank, how'd you deal with the loss of your daughter? She says, I didn't. Mm-hmm. And then the son and daughter, who are like our main characters, he doesn't really deal with his grief. He has like 3 days of living basically once he gets to this house, spoiler. And he's so traumatized, I don't think he ever takes a full shower because he thinks about his dad dying there. He exposits that his dad beat him in the shower and he turned the shower on so his sister wouldn't hear. And there's these little, and you said it's not elevated, it's content. But I think there's some screenwriting bits that gave it just enough footing for me to say, like, oh, they are trying to sew some stuff on. Like the grapefruit thing, where that was like their safe word. I thought it was a bit corny, I'll admit, but it's this relevant thing where she can't see stuff, and he would have this code word for like, it's too much.
Like,
I don't want to tell you.
Well, like, it's the truth.
Or I'm lying to you. Grapefruit. I'm not going to tell you what this is like because it's bad.
Well, it's not supposed to be the lie, but I need to correct one part of that.
Sure.
I'm not saying they throw these things in. Yes, they don't do anything at all with them, but they want you to feel a certain way. This is what I mean about the best example I can use is like a big famous one is Game of Thrones. And in the scene there is a sexual assault scene with Sansa's character, and people are like, what was the point of that? It was shocking to the audience. It's scary. It's not good. It's a shocking moment, no doubt, obviously. But you did nothing with it. There was no depth to it. It was purely there to just, wow, that was shocking. And that's what I mean about this. It's like, wow, isn't that sad? Yes. But and this movie takes itself seriously. And that's where I think this does not mesh. Like, you can put these serious bits in. I'm not criticizing that at all. I'm just saying, like, you go into tackle these serious themes, and you make a lot of the movie about those themes. Like, they do a lot of, like this is not consistent slasher. This is not consistent haunting movie. Those horror sequences are very sparse until you get to really the end. And then it really goes off.
Yeah.
But a lot of this time, like, it's a drama in a lot of ways. Like, it's a lot of like those serious bits. But again, it's all surface crap. And that's what I mean. Like, you can have those moments, but do something. Don't do them. And that's where I think, like, again, like, these guys could kill a fun surface slasher and make it do all the things to make that like a movie I would adore. Yeah. But don't do the same kind of thing with a movie where you play with these serious bits. That's more what I mean. Because they're definitely there.
I get what you're saying, and I feel like this is like me saying adjust for inflation, or in this case, deflation of attention spans. I think in the 2025 zeitgeist of like things that will stick and be thought of as like good or relatively memorable, impactful, etc. I do think this movie checks all the boxes. And the reason why I say 4 and not 5, like you've seen me give a 5 to a few things because I'm a sluttier reviewer compared to you.
I give it way more 5s than you once again, but we'll move on.
All right, let's move on. So my point is like it's a 4 because I think it delivers very consistently, and I found no issues with the pacing. Like one thing when I left, I said to Renata, I was like, wow, and my girlfriend Renata, friend of the podcast, her mom died very young.
You're giving me this energy that you've been like, it's like you have your first girlfriend and you're trying to talk about it a lot. We brought poor Renata up like 18 times in this episode.
Yeah. Okay, so my wife, but yeah, Renata and I, we were leaving, and Renata's mom died very young. And like, when we went to the Austin Film Fest, we saw the movie We Live in Time, which is a lovely movie about a young family blossoming only for the mother to die of cancer. That was a terrible, terrible time. It was a great movie, but it was like my Renata and I were 2 months into dating, and she was like, "That was my childhood. That was awful. I can't." Like, so we're watching this.
No idea. I'm like, "Hey, come see this movie. I don't know what it's about." And
then, we're walking in, and I'm like, Renata's mom. Anyways, not to make it about that.
He told me literally as we walked.
And I felt terrible. This is like, I hope no one ever listens to this part of the pod. But the point of this part is leaving. I was like, Dead Parents Club, am I right? To my girlfriend. And she was like, yeah, like, so what? He remarried her mom and she died and left. He died with no explanation. And also that means that his mom also left and died. And again, it's like, when you start thinking about it, like to any degree, there's a lot of like, coincidence, to make this happen, and whatever. I love Final Destination, so I'm not the one to complain about that. But it's just like everything kind of lines up for this micro drama. Essentially, it's 3 people in a house with a pool that's empty. So like I know what you mean. It's kind of a smaller scale movie, and I think what my like overall thoughts and talks on this is that they took what they really like landed in the last movie, aka like a child bludgeoning themselves, getting possessed by a demon, and a teenager who's old enough to drive but not old enough to live on their own, grieving. That is essentially the three things that that first movie, Talk to Me, had, and this movie has, like 100%. They dialed up the child abuse. They dialed up, I want to say, the effects of grieving, because the other girl was just kind of like neglected and alone. This guy can't shower. They dialed up the things that worked without adding much more. It feels like a smaller movie. There's not as much levity. There's not the fun party scenes or the allegory of like the party game being an escapist thing. Well, I think that first movie manages to be a little bit more elevated. With this, like you said, I think it's a drama with horror. Where the first movie I would call much more like a approachable horror movie, you know?
Yeah.
Like there's the scene where the kid in the bathtub, you see the reflection and he looks like Satan or Beelzebub and the mirror cracks. Good stuff. That's only one scene. And then the rest of the movie is just him being like all messed up. So yeah, I think to kind of summarize, I agree with a lot of your points. But I think because I'm holding on to my youth now that I'm 30, I want to be cool with all the cool kids who are 22, and I want to wear baggy pants and abbreviate. I don't know, but the point being is, I think for the attention span and the quickness, I love that they just kind of sped run all the trauma and backstory, and there's only maybe one or two scenes that's like a drunk monologue where both characters say their issues, and that it's just enough connective tissue to believe both sides.
But do you see how that's like exactly like what I'm saying, though?
The way it concludes, okay, so I'll agree with you because I know I'm causing you to die on this hill here. I'll agree with you, though, because the movie does do an excellent job, in my opinion, the whole way through. But when it goes to conclude, and this is like a thing where they break their ankle on the landing all the time here for me. When it goes to conclude, and it feels almost like something as sloppy as like the Batman vs Superman Martha moment, where the girl in the pool goes, "Mama," and she stops drowning her, and you can't tell if the ritual was half working or if the character had a moment of levity where she was like, "I can't kill a blind girl in a pool." Like it felt a bit hamstrung and a bit like convenient. And also, I would argue the male main character, the older brother, was the main character. He was the emotional core of the movie. You felt bad for him taking on so much, and he unceremoniously gets drowned in a fucking puddle. So the reason why I 4-starred it, and I think as I'm talking about, I should have 3.5'd it. Just the main character is not around for the final act. His actions almost have no consequence on the story, and he's what I would consider the anchor as an older child in a family that went through a lot of social service stuff. So at some point, this movie hit for me. But the fact that he's not around for the final act and nothing he really does contributes other than his ghost voice coming through the possessed boy, I think.
Yeah.
Getting her to touch his shaved head. And when she goes, "His hair's red and curly and long." And she goes, "He had a buzz cut. Am I in danger?" Like,
yeah.
It was a little manipulative to have this blind girl there just to set up these set pieces where we know what's going on, but she doesn't. Like, I agree with you. I had such a good time with it, with a bad theater experience. But the ending really highlighted all the things that I felt were like undercooked, and they line up a lot with what you're saying. I think if they somehow stuck the landing with, I don't know if it would have been more comedy or just a little bit more horror, but to end on this like kind of melodramatic note, more depth.
That's what I'm getting at, because like the fact that you, and I think the difference
I agree
is
with
in
you
here,
with a different perspective.
it's just how much it bothers us. But I really want to hone in on what you said there about in the era we live in and with the attention spans, what they are.
Yeah.
That's not an excuse, right? And that's what I'm trying, like, that's why it bothers me. And to another point you said about like the kind of movies that stick and you linger and remember, this will never be one of those movies. Because of the lack of depth, because of the lack of feeling it elicits from the audience. Like, those are the things that connect and remember and are possible in the medium. And so, like, the thing, like, again, and we agree on this, it's just how much does this bother us versus not. And I feel like as I've watched a lot more movies in the last 5-6 plus years, I notice these issues, like, this bothers me more because, like, you know, you can see, like, you see the potential either way, depending on where they wanted to go. And, like, for me, and like this is gonna make me sound like an actual asshole. This is the first time I feel like I'm actually earning your letterbox moniker that you always label me with.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the gimmick of like if you've never seen the ocean, a bathtub seems deep. And this is
A
like if
puddle
you
seems deep,
right, if you've
getting drowned
never
in.
watched movies that have like wholly impacted you in that way, this movie might seem like, wow, that was elevated, that was serious,
Yeah.
that was a thing. And I feel like through consequence of just the things I've seen, this doesn't work for me because of that. And like I thought of this only because also this week you have your Thunderbolts Cup there. Like I have not seen the movie, but I saw someone post a scene in the movie where they're like, everyone's crying and they're hugging this one guy. And it's like this serious moment. And someone like
The climax.
someone tweeted the clip of this, like, oh my God, like this was the greatest thing I've ever seen, like in film or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy fuck, it's like you guys need to go outside more, like you need to see more, like it's baffling. Like, okay, like I understand like not everyone gets to see things, but I can promise you confidently without actually having seen the movie tell you that it may be a good moment, it may be, I don't know, it's certainly not as impactful as it could be in like a different movie in a different context, whatever the themes are. And that's what I think really, like I said, anchors this to me. Like
Yeah.
they have those things, like it's all there, they just don't do anything with it. And I'm not like, that's not a criticism of the pacing. I thought the movie was paced fine, it didn't slow for me, like there's no issue with that. But a consequence maybe of the way they did it is that again that it ends and I go, okay, that was an interesting way to spend 2 hours, and I move on. Like it was totally forgettable for me in that regard, and I feel bummed out because like again, technically I like it. Like I thought, like on Talk to Me, I'm like, that's a solid foray for your first movie into horror, and I
Yeah.
felt like the things that like again really work. Some of the best horror sounds and effects and visuals I've seen in a bit. Loved that, but the package that it comes in does not work. And I really, like I said, I would really love to see them pivot. Like, don't make elevated popcorn cinema. Make elevate, like don't leave the elevated component out of it. And just these guys would make such a great fun slash. Like you said, Hard Eyes. They could have made the Hard Eyes movie that the opening credits made me feel. I guarantee that. I believe that in my heart of hearts.
I
That
do
would
love
make
that
me
take.
laugh and make me cringe. It would do all of those things. Like these guys can do that, and that's a 5 movie. Like these guys can deliver a movie that I adore. But it's just not when they do this surface level stuff.
I do think you're right there in the sense where if they had the runtime and the we call it the cannon fodder type characters to do the car crashes, to do that, that would be their YouTuber style on good showcase. And then, like what I was saying was, I do think like for what you're talking about, they give you just enough to latch onto. And
Yep.
I think in a movie that's not so character focused, where you have a bunch of cannon fodder characters, I think that might be good enough to make it more cohesive without it just being like
tight 90.
you know, we talk about Final Destination where they would have characters that need to die quickly, so they would have the flaming racist as the character in the 4th movie, and then the gearhead. They don't even give them names because they're barely there. They have 4 lines.
Yeah.
Like, it's my girlfriend. Oh, you know, and they're dead. So I agree with you. Don't get me wrong. I do agree with you a lot. My bit and my closing bit is to explain my joke because that means I'm really funny. When I said you were when I said you were Roger Ebert before, I don't know why I googled this because during your last little monologue there, because I was like, I swear Roger Ebert, who's always referenced as one of the greatest film critics to live, has had some really bad takes, and I swear some of them come from not aging well. A la saying something like, and I couldn't find it. Don't quote me on it. I'm just going to be an asshole. I swear he would say something like Spider-Man was just not good cinema, and then that was like a box office hit with tons of like reference for years to come. You know what I mean? And I was jokingly calling you Roger Ebert because in my opinion, Roger Ebert, who might be one of the greats, does get it wrong from time to time when he's like, this is not cinema, and then it is the defining movie of a generation to come. And I don't know why. I'm probably wrong on that, but I do. I meant it in that sense where I think there's a good argument to be made when you said, why don't they just give these guys a franchise to kill a bunch, a Hard Eyes, a Scream, etc. Give them some new material to add their flair to, which I agree would be awesome. I do think there is a world where a movie like this needs to exist, where it is talked about like elevated A24 goggly gook, where a younger generation goes in to see it knowing, oh, this is supposed to be artsy and good, and it's popcorny enough for those Gen Z younger kids to go, oh, cool, this is horror, this is like real movies, not just like what you said, never seen a movie before, AI garbage, type stuff. So to give
Well,
credit,
so you're
on your
saying like a
criticism.
transitionary movie? Is that kind of what you mean? Like to
I call
bring
it
you from?
a gateway movie. I think
Yeah,
like for example, a movie that I call a gateway horror movie that I saw on Showcase Channel 30 television and Owen Sound was Ginger Snaps. It's a movie about two sisters, and it's a clear metaphor for getting your period and women turning into werewolves. Basically,
okay.
but yeah, it's a movie that's not that good, but it's like, yeah, this older sister is now sexually active and she becomes a werewolf. Picture, when you say the movie It Follows and you go,
Mhm.
that's elevated horror. Picture an unelevated version of that. That's Ginger Snaps. It's somebody experiencing sexuality and contracting werewolfisms instead of the It Follows monster, and then a house to eat people. It's not a great movie. It's probably a 2 on Letterboxd,
Right.
but it's a great gateway. If you kind of like that as a 12-year-old, 13-year-old seeing it on basic cable, you might start to appreciate like other horror movies. So I would say the worst insult I'm giving this movie is it's a great gateway to actual elevated horror. Like I think like the Babadook's been kind of crowned as one of those high elevated kind of artsy horror movies, and I think this is a more accessible version of like a Babadook. So
Yeah,
I
like
like it, but it is service level. I like it, but it is a little service level, and I think that's important to keep movies like that. Not everything can be obscurely artsy or, like you said, a commercial success. But I think that's where they would also do really well. So that's
yeah, like
my
they
foot
don't
in both
have to get
pots.
any more money or like again the foundations are there, and I think frankly it's in line. Like Anthony showed me before, talked to me, like he really loved. That's why I'd seen it early with him, was because he really liked these guys' YouTube channels. So like I saw some of those things that he showed me, and it's like, yeah, they have something there, but like yeah, to me it's just like, again, it's like the fact that it flirts with it without eliciting any of the feelings, like Hereditary, Babadook, like even like again, It Follows, like deals with semi-serious, like there's themes in there, but like I remember that, like I love that movie. It just does enough with stuff, and I feel
Yeah.
like this plays around with a lot and doesn't do anything with it. And like again, like it's not a knock, like I don't mean that as a knock, because like again, this is a guy who's one of his favorite movies ever is Top Gun Maverick, which is like it's certainly not deep, it's got enough there for me, but like it's not, like I'm not leaving that theater like, oh my god, like lost in my feelings and shit, like it's
Dude, super quick, because you and I rewatched Top Gun Maverick 2, Top Gun 2 Maverick. I had a coworker who I kept saying, no, the movie's actually pretty good. And he's like, I don't know, dude. The older man. He's like, I don't know, dude. Top Gun 1 was kind of gay with the beach volleyball. I got him to watch Top Gun 2, and I think like classic, blue collar coworker, middle aged guy. He was like, to be fair, he would call me Goose, because I would say like, oh, dude, like I would jokingly be like, you're Maverick, man, I'm your Goose. And then he's like, wait, but don't you die? Anyways, so he takes me and goes, Goose, just watch Top Gun 2. It's not so bad. And then I'm like, yeah, man, I'm the hangman in that movie, because I'm not a Nepo baby like Rooster. And I'm clearly the Maverick of my generation, getting benched for other people to have their screen time. And he was like, all true, brother, all true. Take it easy, Hangman. And so I went from Goose to Hangman now, and I'm like, I am the Glenn Powell mother effer.
what
Hell
a
yeah,
pivot for you.
what a
No,
pivot.
I'm happy for you, and I think on that note, it's a good point for us to wrap this up on. I think,
Yeah,
like I said, if you
2 hours
Talk
in.
to Me, I think you'll like this one. Although, like I said, I want them to do something a little more poppy and fun. Like I
Fun
think
for
like
sure.
that's more in the wheelhouse that really works. And you can keep that gnarly stuff, man. It can work in there. Have that have that duality to it. Like these guys can make a movie I adore, and I believe that deep in my soul.
On that note, super quick, before I wrap it up with the closer, did you would you say this is better or worse than Talk to Me or Talk to the Hand?
I would say so I would say more people I think will like Talk to Me more than this.
Yep.
I think I feel slightly different about it only because to me this is more there was just on a technical level, like there's visuals, there's things they do here. Again, like I just was like, oh, like I was like, oh, like
Yeah.
I was wincing at it. Just drew a bit more of things out of me at those moments that the other one to me was like just kind of more forgetful in that way. So I feel like for the things I like about it, I would give this one the edge, but I think more people will will like Talk to Me more.
Yeah. Overall, Talk to Me, I would say, yeah, it was probably a little bit more enjoyable on a rewatch, a little bit more, fun. It has a lot of the technical excellence that this movie has, but it's halved because it's the first attempt. I think this movie, like you said, has some great moments and technical excellence, the way they do certain like gore and whatnot. But to me, the way I describe it is it's like it's distilled into what worked in the first movie, and then they put that into a smaller, less fun movie. So all the gore, all the shock value, it's double. But I think that first movie had a little bit more heart, a little bit more character relationships, a little bit more fun, a little bit more like high school feeling. At no point did I feel like either of these characters were ever enrolled in a school or had friends outside of their weird stepbrother and sister kind of vibe. So yeah, I liked it a lot. You got me thinking I shouldn't have given it a 4, but that's that's the curse of having a podcast and talking about movies with your best pal. So
hey, and you know what though? I'm going to give you credit, and I'm going to take a shot at Adriana when she's not here to defend herself. I
Good.
respect the shit out of you for putting a score, just like me. We have to live by those and die by those. I think how you react to something is totally valid. What you put is what you put. But I'm very proud of you for having the stones to attribute a rating, unlike our beloved co-host.
and that goes for all these letterbox people out there, not just Adriana. If you just say you watched a movie but you don't say if you liked it, if you rated it, what you thought on it, don't be on Letterboxd. Just be a boomer on Facebook and say, I saw Top Gun Maverick 2.
Yeah, just checked in at the Owen Sound Cineplex, and it just Brandon watched that movie, great, and move
was
on.
Mark safe at the viewing event of Talk to Me 2, aka Bring Her Back. But on that note, again, fairly enjoyable movie, maybe not as strong, but my theater experience will forever haunt me. I think I'm never going to see a Tuesday movie again if I get the crowd I had. Which included a group of gentlemen behind me who I could smell from a mile away. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, if you go see a movie in theaters, please, for the love of God and good storytelling in movies, don't ruin it. Put on some deodorant or take a shower, providing you don't have some sort of crippling daddy PTSD trauma as explained for in the movie Bring Her Back. Thanks for watching. Have a great night, everybody.